Mike, thanks for the introduction, and let me welcome all of those that are on our webinar this evening. It's a pleasure to have you be a part of this activity. I want to personally thank you not only for joining tonight's webinar and taking time out of your busy schedule. This will be an hour's time that you're taking away from other things that you could be doing. And I think you'll find a big benefit of this as a result of the next 60 or so minutes. But also I want to personally thank you for the role that you serve, that you're in as a commissioner. The commissioner service is so important to helping ensure quality unit service and all the needs to ensure that we have the successes that we need in terms of retention, whether it be on a youth, adult, or a unit basis. This webinar is actually part of a series of discussions we've had to help increase the knowledge and use of our suite of commissioner information resources so that you can better serve our units and help to improve the unit health along the way. To date, we've met with the NST commissioners. We met with many of you as council commissioners at last month's Commissioner Confab. We had two impact sessions, one that was with unit commissioners and one that was with administrative commissioners. And we've held three of these webinars so far, one earlier this evening, two last week. This is our last one, and we're really happy that you're a part of it. Council commissioners are so key. They are part of the key three, as you well know, in a council. They're helping to manage many of the business related things, but as part of that role in the Commissioner Key 3 or the Council Key 3, you're responsible for our unit service. And many of the things that we're going to talk about tonight will directly relate to the unit service and how we can do a better job as commissioners. But I'm also going to tie that into your business role, if you will, and what's been rolled out as the new stack charts. So we'll cover all those bases. And again, I just want to emphasize the importance of your role as council commissioners, and those that are on the call tonight and those that maybe will be viewing this at a later date may not be directly in a council commissioner role, but yet all these tools and all this information that I'm going to share with you will be equally important to anybody reviewing this tonight. We're going to take a little bit of a deeper insight look at, again, how we can best serve our units. Here's what some of the details are that we'll cover tonight. What commissioner data is most useful and the why. The why is equally as if not more important than knowing the what. How commissioner data will impact unit health, and I bold that. I bold that for a reason, because it's a recurring theme. And it's a key to our success on a long-term basis. Data that you use at a council level might be different than data used at a district level, and certainly different than what a unit commissioner will use. I'm going to help you appreciate the differences in what data may be useful at any one of those levels. It's always difficult, maybe not always, but it's frequently difficult to remember and easily find some of this information, and I'm going to help you with that. And then I have a follow-up task for particularly all of you. We've got a need for you as council commissioners to share this with district commissioners. Consider this a train the trainer, if you will, tonight, or if you're viewing this session separately. And I want to make certain that district commissioners are exposed to this valuable information, but equally as important, when it comes time as a council commissioner, or if you're an ACC for data needs, your eventual successors. There's a number of management tools that we'll talk about at the same time as how to best use the commissioner information. Commissioners, because of the changes that have gone on in the Boy Scouts over the last 18 to 24 months, at this stage need to be certain that they're focusing on good unit health, youth retention, and also unit retention. And that by impacting a strong unit health approach, having that as the concept, the foundation, the baseline, this will help then ultimately to improve that youth and unit retention. So let's talk about that for a minute. The opportunities for working those details is really only documented once a year. We track unit retention and youth retention either at the charter renewal time or perhaps at the calendar year-end time. It's difficult to get a meaningful number as to what that number is on a month by month or over the course of a year. It's up to us as commissioners, though, to achieve good results at the end of the year. And how do we do that? The best way that I know is to use what I refer to as monitoring data, and also to use that monitoring data to help coach your team throughout the year. Why is any data important to us as commissioners? You guys as council commissioners serve in that senior level position, the highest level within the council, working as a key three. But your data may be a little bit different, as I mentioned earlier, less detailed perhaps, but the value of that data, and we'll talk about this as we go through the course of this today, opportunities to ask probing questions so that you can help encourage what are appropriate behaviors from a commissioner perspective in terms of working with and ensuring good unit health. How can any of that data affect positive results? If we don't have an adequate number of commissioners to serve all of our units, then we lose. We need to make certain that we're using data to help ensure that we're growing our basis for unit commissioners. Across the country, I'll give you a number of 40% that we're short on adequate number of commissioners to serve our units effectively. And if they aren't trained, then they are less effective than they could be otherwise. You, as a council commissioner, need to know, do I have enough commissioners? And if not, what am I doing about it? I need to know that I've got my commissioners trained so they can be effective in the field. And the next area is, how am I serving my units? Am I deploying my commissioners so that I can get the maximum benefit to ensure good unit health? And I'll tell you that I think that PACs and new units need to be your first priority. And as you look at some of the reports that I'm going to share with you, you'll quickly be able to identify how well are your commissioners deployed. And are you servicing the units that are in the most need? There's also a brand new document that's available, just posted on our commissioner website last week. And if you've not already bookmarked the commissioner website, you can look that up in Google. But once you're on the commissioner website, on the left-hand side is a menu. Scroll down to where it says recruiting. And on that page, not more than just a few lines down, you'll see this brand new document that will help guide you with a little bit more detail in terms of how to best deploy the unit commissioners that we are in scarce supply with. And then also deploying help to the units that are requesting help in the terms of priority needs and in other ways. Finally, good data can help you understand whether or not you have an effective roundtable and do we have the right kind of attendance taking advantage of that. So here's Mike Weber's list of what are the best tools for council commissioners, starting with the council or the district dashboard, moving into how we assign unit commissioners, also unit contacts, are they happening? How broadly, how deeply? Assessments, are there comments? Are we getting collaborative, detailed assessments? Are there assessments that are getting the information that you need as an administrative commissioner to help deploy resources? Are we looking and reacting to priority needs? And what kind of roundtable attendance is occurring? We'll cover these in some detail. Here's the council dashboard. I'm expecting that all of you have seen this and are somewhat familiar with it, but let's just talk a little bit more in detail to assure that we clear the chart equally. This top area identifies obviously how many units you have, also how many commissioners you have, and this is a total number. If you click on just the word commissioner that is underscored, you will have this pop up, and halfway down the chart, there's a number, unit commissioner 389. To me, that is the most important number that you're going to have on this chart. When I look at the commissioners assigned or unassigned, I see that I've got 338 commissioners assigned. And when I compare that to my total number of commissioners, I'm not too concerned, because I know that that number 168 is the balance that's probably roundtable commissioners, other administrative commissioners, and ones that don't necessarily need to be assigned. But you want to make certain at least that you understand those numbers relative to what your totals are. The number that I am concerned about, I see that about a third of my units are unassigned. Which units are those? Are they the new units? Are they the PACs? Are they the units that have the lowest scores? We need to make certain that as administrative commissioners, particularly council commissioners, and working with your cabinet at a district commissioner level, which units are assigned and are they the right ones? Here's your number of completed roundtables. We'll come back and talk about that later in this discussion. Assessment summary. If you note for just a moment in the very lower right-hand corner, this chart is live with all the data pertinent at the time that this chart was created. This came from a report that I generated back in April 25. And so as a consequence, you might see that some of these are low numbers. I would expect that if I did this chart again today, that those numbers would be a lot more. But you as a council commissioner, as an administrative commissioner, you need to ask yourself, is this where you expect to be? Or do you expect those numbers to be different? And if they need to be different, what are you doing to try to help encourage appropriate behavior? The unit service plan, documented typically after completing a collaborative detailed assessment, a valuable tool that every commissioner should be having with every unit that they work with. On a collaborative basis, at least once a year. And if you ask Mike Weber's opinion, it ought to be in the first quarter of the year for a variety of reasons, but two of which, one is that that's the least busy time of year. And it's also a time in the year that you can begin planning for anything that might change at the end of the program year, or begin to get ready for what might happen in the fall. You've also got the unit summary information here in the lower right-hand corner that, again, all of this information at a glance is extremely helpful. Now, this chart has been revised. Hidden behind this upper chart here is this charter renewal status. So we have moved the unit summary down here in the lower left underneath the service plan summary and created a new unit charter renewal status. And we won't talk a lot about charter renewals tonight, but those that are in the mix for having a charter expire come the end of the year will find this very useful as they begin working with their units to get them brought up to speed. And valuable in this as well, right in this corner here where it says report, you'll see this report then that's generated at the top. And you can see across the top here all the different pieces of information that's available. And there's more data on here that isn't showing because of the space limitations, but you'll find that this is very valuable. You can export this to a PDF and a lot of value can be garnered. So that's a new change that has occurred as a result of moving to the new system for the Internet Rechartering 2.0. So the council dashboard, why do we find this important? I mentioned the, in my opinion, the high importance we've got to give to where the number of commissioners are that we have and where we want to strive to be so that we can adequately cover all of our units. We need good commissioner engagement, particularly with the units in most need. We need to understand, are all of our units being served? How well are we utilizing the commissioners that we have? Any need for follow-up so that we can help build that unit health on a collaborative basis as we sit down and talk with our units. We're building relationships, we're building trust, we're building opportunity for better understanding of unit health and eventual move towards better unit health, certainly by developing unit service plans and working closely with those unit leaders. And then as we understand where the needs are, we can begin to apply them, whether they be at a unit commissioner level or at a district commissioner level, or even at a council commissioner level. You may see trends across certain parts of your council where needs are more important in one area than another, or you may see things you never realized were happening. By looking at this data, asking questions, having discussions within your council cabinet, among your team members, you're going to be able to dive into this information on the relative importance of any one of these numbers that you look at. Numbers alone will not tell you the answer. It's the understanding behind these numbers and the discussions that you're going to have, and then the resultant action that you take after that, that is going to really have the impact. And then finally, with roundtable attendance, here's the opportunity for the unit to be able to get involved on their own from their point of view. It's not so much a push system. Here, I've got a pull system, and I get the opportunity for units to come in and learn on their own behalf, and the opportunity to self-help. So I'm going to pause here for a moment, and we've done this in the previous webinars. It's been a successful moment here to stop and catch our breath, ask some questions. And again, as Mike said earlier, please use the chat section. Jot down your question all throughout anything that I'm talking about. Get your question while it's fresh in your mind, and we'll pause and take a moment to answer those questions. Mike?
Thanks, Mike. We have several questions for you this evening. Who can see the information that's in Commissioner Tools? And on the other hand, who can put the data into Commissioner Tools?
Yeah, that's a frequently asked question, and an important one for just a baseline understanding. Those commissioners, all commissioners that are registered have access to anything that's in My.Scouting related to commissioner information. There's three different key pieces of information. One is the commissioner tools that we talk a lot about and we probably use too freely, but there's also roster, and there's also the training manager. Who can see those? Commissioners, number one, any registered commissioner, and I'll come back to that. Also, any key three professional. So if I'm a scout executive, if I'm a district executive, each of those are key three positions. They have access to the same information that we do as commissioners. Now, the level of information that you have access to is dependent on your registration level. For example, if you are a unit commissioner, you're registered in a district, and you have access to the entire district. I can look at not only the units that I'm assigned to, but I can look at all the other units, and I can help a colleague out by entering data for them as necessary. Same with that district commissioner, they have the access across the entire district. You as a council commissioner, and anyone registered as an assistant council commissioner, and for that matter, any professional key three, like a deputy scout executive, they would have access to the entire council. So Mike, I hope that answers that question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. What are the management implications of a commissioner who visits a unit but chooses not to enter unit health into Commissioner Tools?
There's two things that I want to comment on relative to that question. One is that from a unit commissioner's perspective, documenting comments is extremely helpful to me as a unit commissioner. Think of the opportunity to write comments in a unit contact, whether it be a detailed assessment, simple assessment, or otherwise, as a commissioner's notebook. We'll see some commissioners that are assigned to 4 and 5 units, and there's probably commissioners that are assigned to more than that. I think that's too big of a number, but regardless, that's hard to remember. Even if I only have 3 units, perhaps I'll even only 2. I have a hard time remembering everything that I noticed within a unit, who I talked with, what issues there might be, what progress they're making, what help they might need, etc. With a commissioner's notebook, handy as it is in Commissioner Tools, I can remember all the details necessary for future visits and for going back in my recollection of what happened. Little anecdotal piece of knowledge here. I had a 5th grade teacher taught me, a piece of paper never forgets. So if we document this information, we can remember it, be it a month later, be it a year later. All that data is kept. Now, how does that serve us from a management perspective, which was the key of the question? As a district commissioner, or even as a council commissioner, as I scan through the comments, if there's no comments there, I can't learn anything. I can't identify whether there's unit needs. I can't identify if my comments and my interaction as a unit commissioners is meaningful, is useful, is helpful. Maybe there's teachable moments that I can have as I look at those comments as an administrative commissioner with my team. As a council commissioner, I can look across many comments and begin to see, geez, in District A or District B, there's things happening here that we maybe need to talk about. Or as an entire cabinet, there might be opportunities to share either good news stories or particular issues that can be scalable across the entire council. I can also scan those comments and begin to identify specific areas that need help. But again, if there's no comments in there or the comments aren't well developed, then they become useless. And so I encourage you to reinforce that kind of a messaging behavior, if you will, to all commissioners in your team and as many opportunities as you get that. Great question, Mike. Thank you.
The next question we have came from our Sea Scout individual. Can a roundtable be created at the territory level for Sea Scouts? Now, Sea Scouts, of course, is a very specialized scouting unit, and there aren't often enough ships in a given district or possibly even council to justify having a roundtable. But when you get all the ships in a territory, you start to get enough critical mass that you could get them together and have something worthwhile to share insights and do some training. Is it possible either to create that today, or is that something you could add to a list?
I don't see anything that I can think of off the top of my head that would prohibit that or make that difficult to do. We have moved to a virtual platform. We moved to that platform last year. There's lots of information that's available, probably not as much for Sea Scouting as there is for PACs and troops or Scout BSA troops. But I think that is a clever idea. I would be willing to encourage it. And if anybody finds that there are roadblocks in the way of being able to do that, either from a implementation point of view or from a management point of view, I would welcome them to give me a notice, and I will help to work through whatever those might be, because I think I can see a lot of benefit in being able to encourage something like that.
I can also agree with you that I see a value in having a roundtable for the ships. I'm wondering from a technology standpoint, if it's possible to create a roundtable, like we say, the Lakeshore District in Michigan Crossroads Council has a roundtable, and Cub Packs had a roundtable, and Troops had a roundtable. Is it possible to create one for ships? And then secondly, is it possible to create that at the territory level? Or is that something you want to check on?
Yeah, today we don't have the mechanism that I know of to do it at the NST level. It really is based off of the dashboard. I'd have to go back and Mike, if you'll just make a note that some follow-up there is worthwhile. That if we have a dashboard, I think that we have the mechanism to be able to create the structure to be able to record it. There are some workarounds that come to mind, and I won't elaborate on those right now, but I think one way or the other, we can create something that will be effective.
Very good. And lastly, in this session, can bundled reports be created where a council commissioner may want to have a report on district commissioners, one on roundtables, one on unit commissioners? Is there ever been any research into what reports a particular customer would want to have, whether it's a district commissioner, a council commissioner, et cetera?
I'm going to answer the question this way, that our team at the National Commissioner Service Team level is, and specifically in the technology team, is working on the next generation of what commissioner service tools need to be, commissioner service information needs to be. We opened up a survey here a couple of weeks ago that all commissioners were a part of. If you didn't get that, I'd like to know, maybe we can find a way to get that survey to you, but we're taking that kind of input. And certainly if you have any ideas, you're welcome to send them to me directly. Mike will give you an email address here at the end. We'd like to have that input to try to help assure that we're meeting all of our customer needs. We have a lot of ideas already, single click kinds of things, URLs that you don't have to go down in several different clicks to get to something. So we're looking at improvements all the time. And within the budget and the time frame that we have, we're going to take advantage of as many of those kinds of things as we can. But we do need your input, and I'd love to hear from you.
Let me put in a first plug for that email address. So if you have questions or comments, please email commissionerserviceteam@scouting.org, commissionerserviceteam@scouting.org. Given the technology we are using, please include your email address in the body of your email so that we can better respond to you. At this point, Mike, you can continue on with your presentation and we'll take notes on additional questions.
Sounds good. So we started off with the dashboard with a lot of data at a high level point of view. You may want to ask, how do I dive down a little bit deeper? And there's several reports that I will tell you that I think are most important. There's 6 of those. And this you'll use on an as needed basis. But as a council commissioner, you want to make certain that all of your district commissioners are diving into these on a regular basis. They include units with and without assigned commissioner. That's units with and without an assigned unit commissioner. And then unit commissioner contacts by unit. I mentioned before how important that commissioner notebook is and the data that we have relative to comments. So any of the unit contacts with comments is very important. What do they look like? Priority needs. If we're not servicing the priority needs, we're not helping to improve unit health. Are there commissioners trained? There's a report that can give you all the detail that you need. And this really refers first off to basic training, but there's more detail that you can garner for additional training that all commissioners have. And then finally, details into roundtable attendance and who's attending. So why are these reports important? Not a lot different answers than we had when we looked at the dashboard, but you need to monitor unit commissioner growth. Set a plan, set a goal, identify what the tools are to work on unit commissioner growth, use the reports to help monitor that progress and to encourage success and progress along the way. Evaluating the efficiency and the details of your unit commissioner coverage across the entire council. We talked about where the priority needs are in those units. How effectively are your commissioners deployed? Ensuring that they're trained, understanding health scores across the council, providing encouragement and support is going to come from looking at these reports in detail. You'll find success stories. You'll find teachable moments. You'll find trends that you can share and collectively work as a team to help solve. And then finally, again, roundtables. They are a recurring theme. They are an important element to try to continually improve our unit health. But if we don't have units attending them, if we don't have successful roundtables, if we don't have the reason that the opportunity for our units to attend roundtables, then we're failing them. So by using these reports, you can help develop questions and workable plans to ensure that you've got good attendance and successful outcomes. Let's first talk about the importance of that assigned and unassigned unit report. Which units are not assigned a unit commissioner? Vitally key to your success. Where are the most experienced commissioners assigned? We've talked about that. Which units have low health scores? So critical, again, to make certain that we're improving the overall health of our units, because if not, we're going to lose retention, whether it be on a unit level or on a youth level. When will unit's charter expire? We'll talk about that, but you've got the opportunity that if you don't charter all of your units within your council at the same time, you've got a quick handy reference of when the other charter opportunities are. And then who is the charter organization? You may or may not ever need that information, but I'll show you on the report that that's available. So let's go back to the dashboard, lower left-hand corner. This is Commissioner Tools. Click on Reports, and you'll get a report sheet summary that comes up. And on here, you can begin to see that you can collect data not just for the current year, but also for up to 3 years in arrears. If you do not fill out this, and it's not necessary that you do, you will get the year-to-date information. So here we are at the end of October. You'll have the last 10 months worth of data all showing. And again, you can refine that data to as narrow or as broad as you feel necessary. And then in terms of any of the reports that we're going to talk about tonight, they're all listed right here. And there's about 2 or 3 times this amount listed below this page that you can't see. But the assigned and the unassigned report, all you need to do is to click that run report. And this is a report that you'll see. This is in what's called a CSV or Excel-like format. It's handy for being able to sort data. But if you, whoops, we ran into a little bit of problem here, Griffin, that we didn't check all of the red boxes. But let me go back up here. In the upper left-hand corner, a little hard to see, but you'll see where the contacts are. When was the last contact and what is the last assessment score? Another is that we have the assigned description here of all of each of our units. You'll see that I highlighted those units that are unassigned. You see, interestingly enough, if you scroll to the left with your eye, that the first 2 units are a level 1. And in fact, the one below that as well, level 1. So 3 units that are potentially in trouble have no commissioner assigned to them. When you move over to the far right in the upper right-hand corner, it says expired unit. You see that those 3 have expired. And that's unfortunate, probably not surprising given the last assessment score and the fact that they probably weren't done as recently as they could have been. And then you find when will the next cycle occur for the other units. Now I can print that same report out in a PDF form. All the same information, a little bit easier to read. Now, if I look at the corresponding report, here's the assigned, unassigned commissioners. Why is this important? When I was a young district commissioner, I had to create my own roster. Roster is easy to print out with all the personal information that I might need to contact them, whether it be phone number, email, home address to mail them a Christmas card, whatever the case may be. I've got a complete commissioner roster. Also, I know which unit commissioners are not assigned to a unit. I get that opportunity to assure that that's always in front of me if needed. Unit commissioners registration expiration date. This is important. And I don't know how many commissioners know this. I'll tell you, it took me several years to figure this out. Why did my commissioner number drop? And it dropped more than once in the year. Turns out that it can drop during recharter time. As the unit is late in getting rechartered, the commissioner numbers are impacted. And if the unit drops, it may be that the unit commissioner's registration also drops, or for that matter, any administrative commissioner. Likewise, when the district does their re-registration, and for my district, it was at a halfway through the year, I also would lose commissioners then because names were dropped off the list either inadvertently or on purpose. And consequently, those commissioners were no longer in the system and could not access any of the commissioner tools. Also, you may or may not ever need a member ID, but treat this carefully. I want to just pause for a moment. All the data that us as commissioners have, we are privileged to have. That being said, we are have access to all kinds of personal information. We need to treat that with respect, with dignity, and with confidentiality. Use it on an as-needed basis for your purpose and not to be shared outside of your realm of use. But here's what the report will look like. And number of things here that I want to share with you. Member ID is obviously blocked out for purposes of this presentation to maintain confidentiality, but you've got that if you need it. You've also got the position for each of the members on your team. And this works at a council level for all of your assistant council commissioners and all your district commissioners. And if you want to go so far as all your unit commissioners. It also works well for a district level. You've got who's assigned and who's not assigned. So you see James here is not assigned. How come? You've got when they expire. This happens to be when, and this was run from my district in June, different than when we chartered at the end of the calendar year. And so I lost commissioners in December, or in January, I should say, and I lost commissioners again in July after these dates passed. Here are the assignments. You can see here that I've got 2 assistant district commissioners holding down positions with several units. Is that the way you want to manage your business? It's a rhetorical question, but one that you need to identify and work with as a team. Here's a unit commissioner that's got 5 units. Obviously, they're shorthanded, or that is a very experienced commissioner, and or maybe there's some grouping with some of these units. That could be beneficial to group them that way, or it may be overload and work. Let's be careful on how we assign our commissioners. But again, here's the power and the benefit and the use of being able to use a report such as this. A complete listing of most unit commissioner contacts is important for a number of reasons. You want to find out, is your team engaged? You may have, I had 28 unit commissioners when I was a district commissioner. I was pretty much up to speed on most of them, but I did not have a tool like this to be able to see just how well they were engaged. This gives you that extra opportunity to see at a glance how well your commissioner team is doing. You can maybe follow up on an as-needed basis, or you follow up as a total group to reinforce a particular message that needs to be delivered. Even at a council commissioner level, you can begin looking at some of this information and help ask pointed questions in district A, B, C, or D. How can you help an unengaged commissioner? Here's a leadership opportunity for you, a teachable moment. Maybe a commissioner needs to be tactfully retired, gracefully retired. Maybe they need some extra training. Maybe they need some encouragement. Maybe they don't have any units assigned. Maybe they don't know how to really effectively work with a unit. So these are ways that you can use this information and the importance of these simple, seemingly simple reports for how to be more effective as both an administrative commissioner, but ultimately working and teaching and reinforcing and coaching those unit commissioners that are the boots on the ground. And as we all know, the goal of all of us is so that we have those unit commissioners engaged. They signed up to be a unit commissioner. They were recruited to be a unit commissioner. If they aren't engaged, they may lose interest and quietly retire on their own. Let's not let that happen unless it's planned. Let's make certain that if they want to be engaged, we're helping them to stay engaged, and that they're working with their units to, on a long-term basis, provide quality unit service and build that unit health. So here's a report that I think is one of the best ones that was ever created. This is called the District Contact Stats, and it's running. You can look for all, it's run on a unit basis. I mean, across a district, you'll see all the units. Again, go to Commissioner Tools, Reports, go down about 5 or 6 line items, and you'll find this District Contact Stats. And again, let me pause for just a moment. No need to probably take a lot of notes tonight, because this entire presentation is going to be sent to you by email. We'll also be posting it probably on our technology website, and you'll be able to retrieve this and go through it slowly. And again, that's the opportunity that you also have to share this with others on your team. But if you click the box that I have sectioned off, export to CSV and analyze, that is a very handy method of creating a chart that by two more simple tasks. One is that once you click that, in your download files, this report is generated, and it's called District Contact Stats. You notice that this page will come up called Unit Contact Visual Analysis. What you need to do, because this is blank, you need to go to your download files and not open it, but open it through the browse command using your downloads and insert it in here. And you see District Contact Stats in here. I went to my downloaded files, put that in there, and then I clicked the go button, and this chart comes up. This chart by district, because if you run it more than the district, you're going to have too much data and it won't report. It won't show. But in this particular district, it shows all, I don't know, 35, 38, 40 different units. You see the different colors. You notice on the far right-hand side, there's 6 units there that don't have any bars. They were not contacted over this period of time. And in fact, this report was just run yesterday. You see to the left of that, 1 bar, 1 contact. At least 1 contact has been made in 80% of these units. And interestingly enough, in those 1 contacted units, half of them have had a detailed assessment by shown with the green or with the orange color. And in the other ones that have multiple contacts, you can see where the detailed assessments were done and where just simple assessments were done. Very handy chart to run easily, look at graphically, generate several questions and opportunities to understand better how well we're servicing our units. Here's a chart, a report that shows the comments. This is just a simple assessment report that shows the comments. You can see that there's 3 entries in there with no comments. Perhaps because the scores are fairly good, maybe it wasn't necessary, don't know. I'm going to encourage that every unit commissioner ought to always write down at least something, and that they ought to be meaningful. Again, teachable moment, you can look at the comments on a broad basis. Are they meaningful and useful comments to anybody looking at them? You can also look through here and see trends. Where is help needed? Where do resources needed to be deployed? Where are success stories? Where are best practices? How do I share this information across my cabinet? As a council commissioner, what can I share with my district commissioners? What are teachable moments? What are success stories? Where are problems that need group solving? Where are resources that need to be deployed, maybe in a common area or maybe across the board? Likewise, same kind of questions can be handled just at a district level. Priority needs are generated, if you're not familiar with, coming out of a detailed assessment. I prescribe that a detailed assessment ought to be done at least once every year. A detailed assessment, I will also prescribe, should be done in the first quarter of every year. It's a quiet time of year. It's an opportunity that as it leads up to the end of a program year, school year, maybe there's leadership changes. You can begin to discuss those. You can talk about summer plans. You can talk about what might be happening in the fall. If you do this in the fall, do that as a secondary detailed assessment follow-up on how well things are going. But because you've got popcorn, you've got recruitment, you've got new leaders, you've got training, there's just a lot of things happening in the fall. It makes doing a detailed assessment difficult. Always, and reinforce this please with your team members, always do a detailed assessment on a collaborative basis. I mean that with a key 3. The unit commissioner is the person guiding the discussion, leading the discussion, facilitating it, if you will, but at least have the committee chair and the unit commissioner or the unit leader there to have broad level discussion on what's happening in the unit, learn more what's happening, help build that trust, build the camaraderie, build the relationship, if you will. And then when you get to the end of working a detailed assessment, identify, does this unit need help? There are 7 different priority needs among this list. And you can see some immediate trends here. And I'll call out 3 different examples that are obvious. One is right in the middle, no members. How likely do you think that unit is going to survive getting through the next recharter? There's some opportunity to get engaged and help. You look at the no orientation. So as you look at the no orientation, that probably means that they've had very little, if no, training in terms of how to be an effective leader in that unit. They need some help. And then finally, the last one where it says weak lead, weak leadership. They again need some training. They're calling for help. And this is a report that you can easily call up. You can look down through on a widespread basis and begin to make some impact with your team. So let me pause again, Mike, for a moment and see if there's any additional questions that have come in or any new questions that someone is thinking of as we're talking.
Well, thank you, Mike. We do have a question. Does the priority needs report reflect all detailed assessments during the period or just the most current one?
They will reflect them over the period with which was designated. If there was nothing designated, it will automatically show year to date. So again, if we were to go in today and pull that report and didn't put any date span across the top, then I'm just looking at it for the last 10 months. I can put the date range on there, and maybe I want to look at last year's performance, or maybe I just want to look at this fall's performance, but I have those options.
Very good. Well, that is the extent of our questions for this round. We'll see if we get any more during your final wrap up here.
Thanks, Mike. Let's talk about training next. Training is going to be important for a number of reasons. Obviously, if I have a trained commissioner, they're going to be more effective than they would be if they don't have that basic knowledge. And certainly, they'll increase their opportunity for success by having the basic training, but along with that, continual training, whether it be at a College of Commissioner Science, it may be a commissioner type of gathering that you might have that you get done once a year, perhaps. There's a number of different ways that continual training can occur, and I encourage that to just help make a stronger team among you. YPT is the first connection here that I'm going to make relative to the STAC report or the new council metrics. That is certainly one of our compliance measures, and we can help ensure that we've got a safer organization, and it's not just among our commissioners, but also among our units. And there's several opportunities, but one and key that you're going to have to help set the example and reinforce this message. That is during one with the collaborative detailed assessment that I talked about earlier, but also when a charter comes due. And you've got 2 times in that year that you have a chance to reinforce YPT, and knowing that YPT is current for a 2-year cycle, there are 4 chances that you have to make certain that we increase our compliance relative to youth protection training. And then, as we all know, a well-trained and engaged commissioner can be much, much more effective in helping to ensure that good unit health. So let's look to see where we can find some of this information. I mentioned to you at the beginning that when you open up My.Scouting, you'll scroll down on the left-hand side, and you should see available to you, and this was a question that Mike asked, what access do commissioners have? All commissioners will have access to commissioner tools, to roster, and to training. Training is the one that I'm focusing on here. And again, this is all relative to where you are registered. Are you registered at a district level, or are you registered at council level? Certainly, as I'm talking to council commissioners right now, this is available at a council level. But if you were to select in the upper right-hand corner here, this wording that says select organizational level, I would just hover over the top of that. I can dial down to any district, and I can also dial down to any unit. But let's just talk about this at the council level. And these trained leaders all refer to, or only refer to in this case, basic training. So we're looking at commissioner basic training, we're looking at unit leader basic training, we're looking at committee position basic training. And we see down here that I can generate a report, but I notice right away that only half of my unit is trained, or half of my council rather is trained. So when I call up that report, this one happens to be in a PDF format. And actually, we're not doing too bad. If I look down at the bottom, I have only 3 commissioners that are not trained. I've partitioned this for commissioners. And when I look at the details in the red and the green, I notice that I see Jeremy as a unit commissioner. He's not basic trained. And then I have Brian, and down at the bottom, Mallory, that are roundtable commissioners. They probably have been around the block several times and they probably figure I don't need to be trained, and or maybe they didn't know that training was available. Good opportunity here for a teachable moment and to help get your team completely trained. Let's talk a little bit about Roundtable in some more detail. What is the importance of any of the report that I might view in calling that up? I'm first going to find out which units are attending, but my more important mission would be to find out which units are not attending. I want to be able to understand, do I maybe need to increase the Roundtable awareness? Maybe there's an importance level that I have to review with those with those units that are not attending. And here's an anecdotal acronym for you, a WIFM. What's in it for me? You have to create for these units that level of importance, that level of what's in it for me as a unit leader or a den leader or a committee person or even a committee chair to need and want to attend Roundtable. Help create that for your council and then work that within the communication system so that you can help increase that attendance. Perhaps the delivery of Roundtable isn't going as planned. Maybe leadership needs to change. Maybe the date needs to move. Maybe the material with which you're using is boring and out of date, uninspiring, not seen as useful. And that's maybe why attendance could be what it is. But discuss this as a team within your cabinet, work through those that are working on Roundtable and see how Roundtable attendance can change. And I think you'll begin to see impacts relative to unit service and overall unit health. If we look at where to find some of this information, again, going back to the dashboard, click on the Roundtable in the left-hand column. You'll get a report that comes up that looks like this. You'll see what I've circled or boxed out, the same number, 72 total completed Roundtables for this period of time. And the last Roundtable, you can see I pulled this report in April. The last Roundtable was April 15th. There's the details. But if I want detailed on any other Roundtable that was held, that list of 72 is on the right-hand column. You can scroll up and down and pick any one. I'm going to pick this one that was run by Cheryl on April 13th. And here's what comes up. I see that 23% attendance, and I can see which packs and which troops attended and any other detail that is relevant and has been recorded. I'd be concerned that only 3 packs were showing up to this particular Roundtable. I might want to scan through other months within this district to find out if that's a similar pattern. If I go back to the dashboard and I click now on reports, then this is the detail that will come up. Certainly as a council commissioner, this is probably way more detail than you need, but you want to know that this is available. You may want to look at it from time to time, but you want to encourage that all of your district commissioners are using this to understand how are things going in my Roundtables. So the impact of commissioner service on the new council metric. Let's talk about that for just a moment. All Commissioner T3s I know have seen and have been trying to work and understand better these new council metrics and the new stack chart. How do they relate to commissioner service and your role as a council commissioner? I'll tell you that strong units will drive an increase in membership. First of all, because you've got a strong unit where the youth in that program are going to go ask other youth to consider joining because they're having a good time. And if that youth is having a good time, they're going to stick around. So they're going to be holding up the retention figures that we need and are so important to us. If we are continuing with good membership and that the membership is growing, it's going to improve our financial foundation within the council and make them stronger. We talked earlier about YPT compliance. We need to make sure that we're driving the example and that we're ensuring that good safety is across the board with all of our members. And then one more thing relative to YPT compliance, realize that this involves not just our unit leaders, our commissioners, which are obvious, but it also will relate to your your merit badge counselors and other members that are on the board and other folks that are registered within the council. I found it good practice when I was a council commissioner to have an assistant council commissioner or maybe a member of the board that was following nothing but YPT compliance. And that me as a council commissioner, I was helping to advocate that and to work closely with them to ensure that we were impacting the entire council for compliance. And then finally, effective recruiting. We can help build new units. We can help get new individuals, looking at pockets of communities in our council that maybe aren't well served, and that will help improve our diversity. So in summary, you've got the dashboard with the data at a glance. Good way to start. As you become more and more familiar with that dashboard and you've dove into some of those details, that's going to help you be more effective as a council commissioner. Also, as you're working with your district commissioners, you're going to make them more effective at the same time. The unit assignments, are we covering the right units and as many units as we can across the council? The assessments and the contacts. How are we evaluating unit health? What are we learning? How can we use teachable moments? How can we use success stories? How can we improve unit health? Training. A lot of opportunities there for training. We talked about the safety aspect, but we also need to help increase the knowledge and the confidence of our unit commissioners to do a good job. The priority needs, are they being served? Do we know what they are? Are we quick with those? Are we effective in servicing the unit needs as required? And then finally, roundtable and the impact that it has on unit training on a regular monthly basis, as well as unit health. I mentioned earlier that that I would give to you an easy reference tool for how to find any tool that we have available to commissioners. There are 4 of these. There's one for administrative commissioners, which is on this chart here, and this is only a fraction of what that looks like. I'm going to clear this chart in just a moment for you. But this one is for administrative commissioners. There's one also for unit commissioners. There's one for roundtable commissioners. And finally, there's one just for general information related to commissioner service. Down at the bottom of this slide, this will show you how to find it. And again, remember that this PowerPoint will be available to you so that you can find this easily. But you go back to the commissioner website. On the left-hand side is a menu. You scroll down at the technology page, which is almost at the bottom. Once you're on that technology page, scroll about halfway down, and you'll find 4 reference tools for the 4 that I mentioned: unit commissioner, admin, roundtable, and general. Let me clear this chart. On the left-hand side, you have a list, and of course you can't see it all because of the length of the administrative set of tools. You have a list of all the tools available to administrative commissioners. And remember that I told you you can find them in Commissioner Tools, you can find them in Roster, and you can find them in Training Manager. So this gives you the handy reference. I developed this for myself when I first came into this role because I was having a hard time orienting myself in how to find things, etc. So with that, then in this left-hand column, you see some bolded items. That's where you should focus your attention first, and they all ought to look familiar to you because we talked about each one of them tonight. The second column is that WIFM. What's in it for me, or the value add? What is the value of any one of those reports and data opportunities to review? I've listed that for you, and a selling point, hopefully, for you to encourage greater use. The third column is the quick handy reference. Do I go to Commissioner Tools? Do I go to Roster? Do I go to Training Manager? And then finally, the simple path of how to find them. Here's an opportunity for leadership and coaching and teaching. This is a sample set of questions that I've developed, ones that you can ask as a council commissioner as you work with your team, whether they be an assistant council commissioner or, more importantly, a district council commissioner, a district commissioner, pardon me. Again, these are just sample questions, not ones that I'm telling you to use, ones that I'm offering as suggestions that will help you serve as a better leader to your team, working to help coach, encourage, and best serve the districts and ultimately the units. Review those. There's a dozen more that you can come up with on your own. And I encourage that, please. But what data now is important to a district commissioner? I've talked about at length over the last 55 minutes or so of what's important for you as a council commissioner. Here's what's important to the district commissioner, starting with the dashboard. Looks very similar to what we talked about as a council commissioner. But then what are some of the important data reports that they might look up? This list is a little bit longer than the one I gave you as a council commissioner. Again, different levels of data needs at different levels in the organization. There's more opportunities here for teachable moments with our unit commissioners. And the unit commissioner is so important to our success in helping to build unit health. We need to coach them, teach them, mentor them as best we can. And your district commissioners are the ones that need to do that. And it's through this tool, this PowerPoint, this discussion that I've presented to you over the last hour that I want you to have with all of your district commissioners so they can be stronger as leaders and stronger in terms of how they service those unit commissioners. Why are these reports important? I probably covered these, but quickly, each district commissioner and you as a council commissioner ought to have a goal for how many new commissioners, additional commissioners you need. Look at that progress regularly, keep that in front of everybody so that everybody feels a sense of ownership to working that process. Evaluating the efficiency and the details of how well those units commissioners are covering their units, how well are they trained, how well do you and district commissioners understand unit health, providing encouragement where needed, again, roundtables, etc. Here's a set of sample questions that I have developed for district commissioners. They're a little more pointed, a little more tactical, a little more direct, and particularly focused on unit commissioners. Review these, but more importantly, make certain that you expose these and reinforce their level of importance with your district commissioners. What data is important for unit commissioners? Well, these things are, again, very tactical. They're the ones, again, our unit commissioners are so important to ensuring good unit health, good relationship building, good understanding of unit operations, working to help better improve that unit health so that we have good program, we have more youth that want to join, we have youth that want to retain and get more and more out of this. These are the kinds of tools that a unit commissioner is going to need to help ensure that that activity happens successfully. Why are those reports important? It says it for itself as you glance down through this. And again, I encourage you to review this with everybody in your organization. Where can unit commissioners find those reports? This is, again, one of those 4 documents that are found in the technology page. And I encourage you to share this widely in your council. Next steps. This is my wrap-up slide, and then I'll take final questions before we end tonight's program. And I appreciate your patience and sitting through this. My task to you is to take this and review it with your district commissioners in your next cabinet meeting, maybe a special offsite, different ways to share this. Please don't just send this to them and expect that they're going to understand it. This requires you as a leader to sit down as a team, whether this be in a virtual meeting or in a face-to-face meeting. Every district commissioner needs to have this knowledge to be able to help make certain that your units improve their unit health and that we are successful in retention goals. Help them to understand how these and tools can achieve those goals and work with them continually over your time as a council commissioner to coach and instruct. Last but not least, pass this knowledge on to your successor. It may be one of your district commissioners, it may not be, but this is the opportunity to one more time sit down, reinforce the important messages in here, the leadership role that you play as a council commissioner, and how they need to be setting the tone and be effective across the entire organization, both working with their district commissioners and ultimately with the unit commissioners. Bottom line on all of this, I've stressed it a number of times, but just one last time, unit health is the key. Unit health will be the key to ensuring that we have retention for youth, adults, and units, and that the impact of you as a commissioner and all of our commissioners to engage in are critical to our success, and it relates to membership, finances, and safety. So with that, Mike, I will take any additional questions. And again, thank everyone for their time and involvement this evening.
We've got a couple. So first of all, you've been talking about leading a council using data tonight. Given the importance of safety, how can we as commissioner managers and commissioner executives use the youth protection training report to help get our councils up to the national benchmark of 98% of our leaders current with their youth protection training?
Yeah, that's a difficult chore to handle. We've been working on this now for a number of years, but I think with the exposure, the raised importance of achieving a 98% goal, and you as council commissioners having direct access to this kind of data. And again, I suggested earlier that you either have an assistant council commissioner or another board member help you with this task, but this report needs to be reviewed in many circles within the council, whether it be at a board level, whether it be at a district, one of your cabinet meetings with all your district commissioners, or reviewing on a regular basis, even across folks like merit badge counselors that are hard to sometimes get effective communication with. But with this report in an Excel format, you can sort this down to just those that don't have the training yet or that it has expired. And the opportunity to be able to have that knowledge and share it with the right forums that you're a part of and have influence on as a key leader within the council can't be understated.
Well, there's one last question. I think I'll give your voice a break. Is there a report that lists unit meeting information like date, time, place, location? And at this point, the answer is, excuse me, there is no information in commissioner tools, but this is certainly something that your district professionals are probably collecting. And if they aren't sharing, by all means, ask them. So with that, are there any last questions?
And Mike, let me follow up on with what you just said, because that's something that probably gets overlooked. And it's been a difficult item to manage on a database process as we have. But again, when I was district commissioner and then later council commissioner, I created such a list for all roundtables. Where within each district was a roundtable, who were the current leaders of them, what nights did they meet, what was the time, who were the contacts. If you have that information, you can share it with all the units to help increase the level of exposure of roundtables and answer some of the basic questions for why people don't even attend because they don't know, fill in the blank. So I encourage that you as a council take on that chore. And although we don't have it available for you personally, create it yourself. Somewhere over time, perhaps we'll be able to help take that information from you and make it more formal. Good question though, Mike. Any others that have come up since we've been talking?
So someone did suggest that we should ask for unit meeting information with rechartering, and that is certainly one of the great opportunities to do that. In fact, that is something we are actually doing. My council is collecting meeting information as well as Journey to Excellence information in Google Sheets. And that way it's electronic and all the data is accessible in a single document. We know who's populated, who's not. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to use the existing technology to make commissioners' lives easier.
Yeah, so although we have the chartered organizational rep information or charter organizational information, that's not necessarily where units meet. And of course, you don't know the times that they meet and the days of the week. But having that information helps Cub Packs know which troops are in the area so that they can manage a Webos to Scout transition. It also helps troops for recruiting Webo Scouts that need to make that transition and come into their units. But having that kind of a tool is extremely useful at that point in the life of a Scout.
So with that, I just wanted to remind everyone that I will be sending out a survey asking you how this session went in your mind and looking for some tips for improvement. We will send the PowerPoint and the frequently asked questions from these sessions out to all participants. And with this, thank you for attending this evening. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I hope to meet each of you on down the scouting trail. Thank you for a good night.